Welcome back to Money Mind, and thank you for staying with us. As a result of the pandemic, our new normal involves working from home, sharing information via the cloud, and making digital payments. But this also makes us vulnerable to cyber attacks. And a new report from IBM shows that the cost of these data breaches has hit a record high. Jonathan Pierce has more. It's been said that data is the new oil, and like all valuable commodities, it needs to be safeguarded from attacks or threats. According to IBM Security's latest Cost of a Data Breach report, this need is more pressing than ever. The study found that the average cost of a data breach in 2021 hit just over $4 million. That's a 10% year-on-year increase from 2020. The industries with the largest cost increase in data breaches include retail, hospitality, consumer distribution, and healthcare. Nearly half of the breaches analyzed exposed customer personal data such as name, email, and passwords.
Passwords, for example, cannot alone be an effective way of security. It's a really vicious circle. On the one hand, you've got stolen user credentials, and these are the most common root causes of malicious breaches, stolen user credentials. On the other hand, you've got customer personal information, which includes passwords, and this is the most common type of information exposed in a data breach. So you take the two in combination, I think it has an exponential effect. Especially when the same passwords are used across multiple accounts, I think it leads to a lot more data breaches, and of course, it does increase the cost.
As companies increasingly allow their staff to work from home and share information over the cloud, these networks become more vulnerable to attacks. In this current environment, IBM advocates a strategy called Zero Trust Architecture.
The fundamental assertion is that the network is always assumed to be hostile. Threat actors can come from both internal and external sources. Every device, every user, all network flows need to be authenticated and authorized for a particular action. And the authentication cannot be just based on user IDs and passwords, which was maybe more traditionally used. It needs to be dynamic, right? It needs to be calculated from many sources of data.
But while such schemes may work for bigger companies, they can be challenging and cost prohibitive for small and medium enterprises. In Singapore, the Association of Information Security Professionals runs a cyber awareness program that reaches out to such businesses.
A lot of them can't relate the risk that they are taking on when they do digitalization. So, for example, I think the moving to the cloud becomes something that they will charge ahead, but not understanding the risk that they will face, and then what are the controls or even support that they actually need to take on.
The IBM report also showed that the adoption of AI, security analytics, and encryption were the top 3 mitigating factors shown to reduce the cost of a breach. These tools saved companies between $1.2 and $1.4 million compared to those who didn't have significant usage of these tools. But the weakest link remains human errors, such as opening malicious emails or sharing data recklessly.
One of the key things I think is really digital resiliency. So, like what we talk about in terms of zero trust, it also means that you have to have that assumed breach and that willingness to be able to respond. You need to invest in things like cyber insurance, professional help in incident response, or prepare for incidents. And of course, in a larger case, I think it's really to be locked on to information sources. I think if we place more focus, I think in terms of the human awareness and vigilance. So really, think twice before you click.
Another popular trend in Singapore could pose a high risk of a data security breach. And that is the growing number of buy now, pay later, or BNPL schemes being offered by startup fintechs. Many of these startups don't have the same cybersecurity infrastructure of a bank or a larger financial institution.
For the consumers, obviously, this opens up for identity theft, right? You're signing up for an account, you're probably using the same username and passwords where you're using everywhere. And those username and passwords, let's say it's a pet grooming site, you put your username and password there, they hack the pet grooming site because no one's really looking at pet grooming sites. But that password is valuable because now they take it, into a BNPL platform, they figure out your username and passwords, and off they go to the races, right? So the consumers are susceptible to account takeovers. And the worst case scenario there is you can hack an entire, BNPL platform because, maybe it's not well built. And a hacker could sit in there for months without revealing itself and just keeps collecting all this information and then finding an opportunity to attack the banks, to attack the consumer out of the same platform.
Experts advise consumers to choose a BNPL service that provides some level of security.
For example, when you sign up for the account and literally you're just putting a username and password, that's a bad BNPL provider, right? You should at least get an SMS text message, you're verifying through phone, a much stronger authentication protocol. So I think consumers also need to do a good job. And of course, from password perspective, hey, put multi-factor authentication on your email account. Don't use the same passwords, right? That you're using for your pet grooming service, in your financial account. So make sure you exercise due diligence.
Coming up on One Mind, why those thirsting for alternative investment